Drinking from friend's skull. Around 14,700 years ago, in the dead of an Ice Age winter, a young hunter was gored to death on a freezing hillside in what is now southwest England. His group had been driving a wild horse through the snow, closing in for a kill they badly needed, when the animal wheeled around at the last moment and caught him. Its weight slammed him off his feet, and as he went down, it drove into his belly and tore him open. The others brought it down seconds too late. They carried him back to the cave with his hands pressed to the wound, snow sealing the entrance behind them. But his tribe didn't try to save him. Instead, they killed him with a rock. Sounds shocking, right? You'd probably think they did it to end his suffering, but the truth was far worse. The flesh was stripped cleanly from the bone. The long bones were cracked open and the marrow scooped out and eaten. And then they came to his head. And here, the work slowed down and turned careful. They peeled away the scalp and cleaned the skull. Then, they knocked away the face and the base of the head, leaving only the smooth dome on top. There was no rage in any of it, and no panic, only skill. Because what they were making out of the front of a mind that had held an entire human life was a cup, a bowl to drink from. But fully cleaning a skull is incredibly difficult, and dangerous bacteria can still remain. So while the tribe believed they had made a safe drinking bowl, they had actually created a deadly one. Within a week, more than 50 people died after drinking from their friend's skull. A deadly revenge. But the story of the next incident, where an entire room full of people died, is even worse. Around 10,000 BC, on the second night of a volcano's eruption, some 300 people were crammed into stone shelters on the shore. They had run the right way, down to the water, away from the burning mountain, and now they waited in the dark for rescuers who were never going to come. They thought the worst was behind them. Then the side of the mountain came down toward them. It was not lava, and it was not smoke. It was a cloud of superheated gas and ash, moving faster than the wind itself, glowing from within at a heat beyond enduring. And the greatest nightmare of the hundreds of people in that tiny room had arrived. The people on that shore did not burn the way a body burns in fire. Burning takes time, and there was no time. The heat was so extreme and so sudden that the soft tissue of their bodies flashed instantly to vapor, and the fluid inside their skulls boiled. In the space of a single breath, skin, muscle, and blood were simply gone. Most people who die in fire are found curled up, fists raised, as their muscles cook and contract. In one of their skulls, the heat was so intense that the man's brain was cooked and then cooled so quickly that it turned, inside his own head, into a lump of smooth black glass. First ever quicksand death. Around 4,000 years ago, on the coast of what is now the Norwegian island of Hitra, a man in his mid-20s died in a way his people had never seen before. It started with something small. A stinging insect, a species long since extinct, darted out of the grass at him, and he flinched back. One stumbled step, and his full weight came down on ground that wasn't ground at all. It was bog, a thin skin of moss over deep, sucking mud. Since it was their first encounter with quicksand, they handled it all wrong. It split open and swallowed his legs to the thigh. He tried to climb out. That was the mistake. Every kick, every grab for the solid edge only dragged him down further. But things were just about to get much worse. The cold mud closed over his hips, then his waist, then his chest, with a slow and patient strength that no amount of struggling could beat. The harder he fought, the deeper it pulled him. His people heard him screaming and came running. They reached for him from the firm edge, shouting his name close enough to see his face. Many of his friends rushed in to save him, but hundreds of them were dragged down by the quicksand as well, killing them slowly. A tiny insect had led ancient humans to discover just how deadly quicksand could be. Others could only watch, scared, as the quicksand swallowed hundreds of their friends a few centimeters at a time, until the mud closed all their body and killing them as if none of them had ever been standing there at all. Die from laughter. 3,000 years ago, one man in the Greek world is said to have died from laughing too hard at his own painting. His name was Zeuxis, and he was the most celebrated painter alive. The artist who, the old stories claimed, once painted a bunch of grapes so lifelike that real birds flew down and tried to eat them. One day, an old woman came to his studio and asked to be painted as Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, and insisted on posing for the portrait herself. Zeuxis agreed and he began to paint. But as the goddess of beauty slowly took shape on the panel, wearing this particular old woman's face, the gap between what she imagined herself to be and what he was actually painting became too much for him. He started to laugh. He tried to stop. he couldn't. The laughter built until it had taken him over completely, until he could no longer catch a breath. And as the Roman writers who repeated this story for centuries insisted, he laughed until he simply dropped dead, brush still in his hand. A too-perfect ending stitched onto the life of a great artist. On a list of the worst ways the ancient world could kill you, swallowed by a bog, boiled alive on a beach, torn out of the sky by an eagle, he is the only one who went out laughing. This one tells a brutal story of a time when humans weren't at the top of the food chain, but just praise for the animals around them. Some 2.5 million years ago, in what is now South Africa, an 18-year-old walked a little too far from the safety of his group. He was the strongest of them and the fastest, and nothing in his short life had ever beaten him. He crouched at the edge of the water to drink. Above him, riding the air on wings wider than a man is tall, a crowned eagle had already chosen him. It came down in near total silence. That silence is the whole point of them. And by the time he felt the shadow fall across his back, it was already too late to run. The talons hit first. One set of claws drove into his skull from behind, the rear talon punching down through the bone at the base of his head. The other set slammed into his face, the claws hooking in around his eye sockets and clamping his head like a closing fist. An eagle's grip is built to kill on contact, to crush and pierce in the same instant. And a thrashing, screaming victim only drives the claws in deeper. He fought. It didn't matter. The more he struggled, the worse the claws tore. Then, the bird lifted him. 18 years of muscle and confidence, hauled off the ground like a rabbit, and carried up into the air. His people never found a body. Only millions of years later, a single small skull. This is a way to die that the world isn't capable of anymore, because the two things that killed him are both extinct. East Africa and ancient wetland. The man we call 07 is a Homo habilis, barely 4 feet tall, small and fragile in a land built for giants. And on his last day, he does something completely ordinary. He walks down to the water for a drink. He never sees it. Just beneath the surface lies the largest true crocodile that ever lived. Longer than a car, heavier than 2. Then it erupts. He throws himself sideways, trying to run, but he's half a second too slow. The jaws catch his left leg and clamp down with a force nothing in his world could survive. The bone shows deep, unmistakable puncture marks. Then it twists, and part of his leg is simply gone. In that heat, in that filthy water, this wound alone is already a death sentence, even if he doesn't bleed out first. But he's still moving, still fighting. He turns to face the crocodile, and that's the mistake. Because the chaos has drawn something else. A big cat, leopard size, slips in behind him while his back is exposed. It strikes the back of his skull, raking long grooves across the bone. 2 predators, 1 man. Neither wound ever showed a single sign of healing, because for 07 there was no after.